All right, everybody. Today's guest currently holds the position of CEO of Black Swan Real Estate. Prior to his success in real estate, Nick spent 15 years working in software development, helping his company grow from a $13 million in private venture capital to a 100 million private equity sale. His real estate career began at the age of 14 years old, where he found himself seeking safe housing due to family health issues. So he lived rent free at his family friend's house under the condition that he would clean and rehab their basement. This value add flip propelled Nick to now owning multi-million dollar real estate portfolio. Nick joins us today to share his wisdom in real estate, his mindset behind achieving financial freedom, and his current and future success. Nick, so happy to have you here today. Welcome to the Define Success podcast.
Thanks, Matt. It's a privilege to be here.
Absolutely. So let's start off at 14 years old. Reading about your story, I love the start of it because at 14 years old, most people, they don't know what they want to do. They're going through, I guess, middle school or high school, probably chasing girls and trying to figure out what life is all about. And here you are getting involved in real estate at 14 years old and finding the opportunity to start your career at that such a young age. So start us off, like, what inspired you to look at this as a business, not just I need somewhere to live?
Yeah, I mean, necessity is the mother of invention. I think God gave me the great gift of this magic recipe I've seen in lots of other successful people, which is adversity plus love. And I never met my father growing up. Kind of grew up in a very kind of adverse environment. My mom had a traumatic brain injury when I was 6 years old, so I kind of had to be the man of the house at an
Mm-hmm.
extraordinarily young age and kind of help take care of her. And there were a lot of financial and logistical challenges to go with that. And I have no clue how I came up with that idea or whatever, but we're visiting a family friend's house and they had a whole lower level to their house that was just trashed, just every kind of damage that could be done to it that you could imagine was the case. And we were kind of homeless at the time, kind of car homeless,
Mm-hmm.
and which is a challenging situation in Minnesota in the winter.
Yeah.
And I said, if I could like clean up your basement and like renovate it, could we just live there? And they're like, well, sure. That's and to this day, that's kind of what I do is like, how do you put together a can't lose offer, like just
Mm-hmm.
an irresistible offer where someone has to like pause for a second and say, well, why would I say no to that?
Yeah.
And so that was actually kind of our most stable housing situation for quite some time, and we cleaned everything up. Right, I cleaned everything up and got a couple of people to help, and everyone kind of had fun, and then yeah, we had a place to live, and being a quote unquote private equity fund manager, having a third of $1 billion in assets under management, like those might seem like kind of abstract ideas or not applicable to most people, but I think most people understand their need for housing,
Mm-hmm.
and that idea of here's a problem I can solve. Like I'm in this person's house right now, and like half their house is like non-habitable.
Right.
And if someone just spent, like a month, like just working really hard, like it could be habitable, just no one has put in that work. And I need a place to live.
Mm-hmm.
like just putting together two problems that create a solution, like that's how all wealth is created. That's
Yeah.
how that's the epitome of entrepreneurship. Like I think most people don't even understand what entrepreneurship is. They think that it's like becoming a plumber and then practicing your trade. No, that's being self-employed, being a technician. For the best definition I've ever heard of an entrepreneur is the gig is the gig is creating the gig, is
Mm.
finding that value, not necessarily performing the thing, but yeah, I'm in this house right now. Half the house is non-habitable. I need a place to live. I bet I could fix this place up. I can create value for both people. That's just a can't lose offer. That, in my opinion, that's the epitome of entrepreneurship, and that's how I've been able to create all the wealth that I enjoy today.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's such a good lesson. And something that I've learned recently is when you're trying to create wealth and you're trying to make money for yourself, you have to look at it in a way of helping other people. That's what
Yeah,
you just summed up right there perfectly, because it's not all about, hey, I want to invest in all these real estate properties. I'm going to make so much money. And it's all just going to be for me. But if you
yeah,
look at it in terms of maybe I'm going to go to a very underdeveloped area and I'm going to build up this community and help all these people that might be struggling with their housing situation right now, but now we're going to help them not only live somewhere, but hopefully in 10 years, they can sell it. They're going to make a lot more off of their investment. So I love that you bring that up because that's what it's all about. No matter what industry you are in, you always need to look for some way to help someone. So why do you think real estate is such a big, a powerful way to help other people?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I can't help myself, but I couldn't agree more with everything you just said there. Like, if all you do is focus on helping other people and helping other people solve the biggest problem that, I mean, when I was 14 years old, I did not actually know if I could renovate a basement before. I'd never done it
Hmm.
before, but I'm like, I really don't like being homeless. So this is probably less worse than this problem. This is a higher quality
Yeah.
problem to
Yep.
have. Like, if you just focus on helping other people solve big problems that you almost feel uncomfortable solving, you're going to have everything you need. That's just how the universe works. And if anyone thinks that sounds like some woo woo nonsense, I dare you to just try it for 30
Hmm.
days. Try it right now. Just like pause this podcast. Think of someone in your life that has a big problem to solve. Like, forget about yourself. Depression is an inward facing emotion. It's easy to get depressed when you're homeless and don't know what to do and woe is me. And I don't know how, just a gift that I was given that was put in me. I'm just wired to think about how can I help other people.
Yeah.
And even when you're homeless, if you're trying to help someone who doesn't have clothes on their back, like, you feel pretty grateful for not being naked. And as someone who's starving, like, you feel pretty grateful that you got a belly full of food. Like, and hey, these people, their house has a problem. Like, I can solve that problem, and my needs will be met. So I sorry, I couldn't help myself there.
I appreciate that.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and then your question about real estate, that's actually a really simple one. So real estate is the most common, statistically speaking, it's the most common vehicle for seven-figure wealth creation. More millionaires are made
Hmm.
in the United States and in the world in real estate than any other industry. It's not a get rich quick system. It's a get rich for sure system. It's very consistent. And there's a really simple reason. It's the thing that has the biggest number of zeros behind it that most people can kind of interface with on a day-to-day basis. So, like, transportation is kind of a big ticket item in your life. Housing is a big ticket item in your life. Most other things don't really compare to those two things, depending on your situation. And if you can just lean into that thing, you're going to be more successful. Like, for example, I'm a licensed real estate agent, and if I meet someone who's selling, like a multi-level marketing product, and they're successful at it, I might tell them, you should sell houses. I'd love, to just take a half hour of my time and convince you to become
Hmm.
a licensed real estate agent for your own good. Because if you can sell someone a $30 good, you can sell them a $300,000 good, and it doesn't actually take a different amount of time. It doesn't take a different skill set. And there are ways to make more money. So I'm very much in tech. For example, we have a technology private equity fund, and I had multiple very successful tech startups. And I'm just because I love technology, but most people don't have that tech skill set and connections. But like, everybody sleeps somewhere. Everyone
Hmm.
everyone knows what real estate is, and so it's the most accessible way for 99%, unless you are a physician or an attorney or you're in tech, you have some kind of esoteric skill set that plugs you into a really specialized thing like that. Real estate's the thing that generates wealth most consistently. And in fact, even though I have like this specialized tech skill set, I still make way more money in real estate than I make in tech. And my wife is a
Mm.
physician trained at the Mayo Clinic. She is so much smarter than I am, just an incredibly brilliant, gifted person. And she is able to make much more money in real estate than in medicine.
Wow.
She does not practice medicine at this time, despite spending, 17 years going through the training,
Wow.
because there's just more zeros behind real estate. And so we can go transact a $25 million apartment building, and it takes about the same amount of time to do that as it does to see a patient, or to sell a multi-level marketing product, or to sell someone a $300,000 house. It's just getting more zeros and more capital leverage behind your time and your expertise.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it, saying that it's not a get rich quick, it's a get rich for sure. And I
Yeah,
love that analogy right there because I think a lot of people, especially the people listening to this podcast, this age demographic, a lot of people are looking to get rich quick. They're
yeah,
looking for the options to get as many dollars in their bank account as possible. But with that comes a lot of risk. You're risking not having the experience to do it the right way. But also, if you are investing your money in different avenues, you have the risk of volatility and all those different factors. The real estate, you're going to get rich for sure, but also you're
yeah,
going to keep it. It's an
yeah,
asset that you can look at, you can touch, you can feel, and it's going to cash flow if you're renting these properties out. So That's the power that I see. And I'm so excited to learn from you and your portfolio. So you built up such a large portfolio over the years. What has been the biggest challenge or obstacle that you faced in building this massive portfolio?
Yeah, so a fun a fun concept that I love mentioning is the Dunning-Kruger effect. Have you ever heard of that, Matt?
No, I've not.
It's a great concept that I wish became more popular in the world. And I would say this is the number one stumbling block for the investors we serve, not as much for ourselves, though I definitely experienced this firsthand. So if I asked you, um, do you think that there's probably a pretty good correlation between how competent you are at something and your perception of your competence in that thing? Do you think those two are pretty well correlated? So if you're like pretty good at playing basketball, you think you're pretty good at playing basketball. If you think you're bad at playing basketball, you're probably pretty bad at playing basketball. Do you think those things are
Yeah,
probably pretty
I
correlated?
would say so. Yeah.
Yeah. Turns out that's not at all true, like not in the
Okay.
slightest. And when you know nothing, you think that you have no competence, and you're right. That's
Mm,
in fact the only time you're ever right is when you know absolutely nothing at all. And when you know just a little bit, that's called being at the peak of Mount Stupid,
huh.
because your perception of your confidence is way up here, but your actual confidence is way down here. In fact, that's the genesis of beginner's luck, is you have just enough knowledge that you now have all this confidence to go play the game or make the move with
Hmm.
extraordinary confidence, despite the fact that you have no actual competence. You have
Yeah.
confidence, so it can work to your advantage in beginner's luck. But that's where people lose it all. And we do a lot of coaching. Anyone, anytime, they can go to meetblackswan.com, book some time on my calendar. I'm happy to just serve you any way I can. If you're in a deal that's going sideways or whatever, just whatever I can do to help you. Again, I just love helping other people solve problems, and whatever comes back to me, great. Um, People get trapped at the peak of Mount Stupid. So they think that I'm a really smart physician or a current attorney or accountant, and I'm really good at this thing, and therefore I'm probably really good at real estate investing.
Mm,
And they're not.
hmm.
And they get into a deal and they get upside down and things go sideways. And sometimes I feel like they almost willfully do every single thing wrong, the opposite of what they should do. And that's sometimes when we get involved and try to serve and try to help people. But I could tell you some horror stories, but any investment involves risk. And in real estate, people think it's like the stock market or crypto, like it's like a passive investment. And investing in real estate is an active business. It's like buying a lemonade stand or restaurant. Like you have to run that business. Even if you
Hmm.
don't have W-2 employees, you have contractors, you have vendors, you have
Yeah.
tenants, you have relationships that you have to you are going to have to spend time on that thing at least every month, and in some cases every single day for the start of the investment. And the biggest challenge that I see most investors encounter is when they've got like maybe two, three, four, five properties. I call that the valley, where maybe you're getting $100 a month in cash flow from five single family homes or whatever. It's not life changing wealth. They're trying to replace a six-figure income,
Hmm.
and they've heard they can like cash flow their way to financial freedom. You need like 100 houses to do that. Like you run the numbers, you're only making like $1,000 a year per house in cash flow. So you need 100 houses to get 100K per year in income. People don't really do that math. And they get to like they have like five properties, just enough that there's always something going wrong. There's
Mm,
always a maintenance issue. We got to replace the furnace. There's a leak in the roof. There's a tenant issue. Those are the most taxing ones always. They they think it's a passive investment, but really it's just like any other business. It's just the business that has the most amount of leverage behind it, the most amount of zeros with the highest quality debt that
hmm.
you can
Right.
get compared to any other business. When you buy an apartment building, you're buying a stream of income, just like if you bought a restaurant, and you better be prepared to run that restaurant, to run that apartment building with all the same time, commitment, attention to detail. And I find that's the biggest challenge for many investors is thinking it's a passive investment, like buying a stock in the stock market or whatever.
Hmm.
And nothing could be further from the truth.
Yeah, that makes sense. What do you value the most as an investor? Is it a single family home? Is it an apartment complex? Is it commercial real estate? What do you think is the most beneficial to get the most return on your investment?
Yeah. So that's another neat thing about real estate is it's hyper local. It's hyper local. So that would be like saying, what's the best investment in uh, I'm actually having a hard time thinking of something that's as hyper local as real estate is. So if you say what's the best investment in technology, well, you should go buy Amazon stock. Anywhere in the country, you can go buy Amazon stock.
Hmm.
And sometimes I think people will buy, properties in other geographies, thinking that real estate works that way. It doesn't. If it's in your backyard, you have a lot more competence in managing it than if it's remote. Um, yeah. So it really just depends on your area. We purchase single family and multifamily real estate.
Okay.
I was a technology guy before real estate, so I saw some of the disruptive trends that were occurring in retail and office. I'm a big self-driving car fan. I've got a Tesla. That's going to have a huge disruptive impact on the way everybody lives their life in profound ways. We don't know what people are going to do and where they're going to be when they're awake, but we do know that they have to sleep somewhere.
Hmm.
So what we do with our private equity fund is we go buy places where people sleep, because I perceive that's sort of the most disruption resistant
Yeah.
investment thing, place to put money to generate a return today. And I think we were maybe a little ahead of that curve. We've been doing this for about 12 years, and I think a lot of other people kind of figuring that out now today. And COVID drastically accelerated most of those trends that were already kind of slowly happening for a while. But we really like single family and multifamily real estate. If you want to own multifamily real estate, you usually do that in a partnership.
Hmm.
Very few apartment buildings are owned by one person. It's typically a joint venture partnership, a real estate syndication, or a private equity fund that own the vast majority of apartment buildings. But if you really have a strong spiritual desire to own it yourself, you can just go buy a house. And I'm a real estate agent. I love helping people buy houses. I think they're both great ways to own real estate. Um, I do see people sometimes, I think, make a mistake when they want to go buy an apartment building on their own. Maybe they, have a store of capital from their day job or something. They go buy a 20 unit apartment building, not realizing exactly what they're getting into.
Hmm.
But yeah, so those are the two favorite asset classes that we have that we invest all of our capital in.
Awesome. You mentioned disruption, so it leads perfectly into the next topic because right now, as you can tell, and I'm sure you can tell us perfectly, is there's a lot of uncertainty going on right now.
Yes.
There is a recession. We just had a pandemic a couple of years ago, and there's a lot of people that are concerned about their jobs, their future, their investments, and really all these other things in their life. Can you give us an outlook on how you see the real estate market going in the near future, and is it still a viable investment option for people?
Absolutely. So we do state of the market once or twice a year. If anyone wants to go out to meetblackswan.com, they can sign up for our mailing list and see those replays and stuff. And we dive deep with charts and graphs and stuff and talk about state of the market. The nice thing is, so everyone's crystal ball is broken, but if you're very specific in how you make predictions, you can almost never be wrong, which is a skill that I've really observed kind of uniquely. So, for example, Warren Buffett, who I really admire and really just emulate all of his principles, he says the most desirable profile for an investment is one that delivers a routine, almost guaranteed moderate return with a random chance for a wild upside,
Mm,
which is an oddly specific profile, right? Like,
yeah.
how many investments can fit into that bucket? Not
Right.
many, right? Well, if you pick the right strategy, the right asset class, et cetera. So real estate investment, for example, depending on the type of real estate you invest in, how you invest in it, it falls into that. So we buy apartment buildings that have kind of a regular cash on cash rate of return, cash flow that's pretty modest. And then like every 5 years, we do a cash out refi where we get 100 times more money than we get in a typical year of cash flow. We harvest that equity. Or
Wow.
one day 20 years from now we could sell that apartment building and get 100 times that routine cash flow amount. Or I could invest in land, and it would not meet that criteria, right? Because it's no longer producing that raw land does not produce income. It's a cost center. You pay taxes, there's a moderate amount of liability associated with it, and there is this wild upside potential, but there's not this kind of recurring income event. Or I could buy a treasury bill, and it would not meet those criteria either, because you get this kind of recurring modest return, but there's not really a chance for a wild upside with a treasury bill. So if you make very, very, very specific, very, very calculated predictions about the future, you can typically be right. So here's an example to hopefully make this very useful for your audience. So interest rates are going up right now.
Yeah.
That means that housing prices theoretically should be going down. However, at this time, 40%, 40% of all US mortgages are at a rate below 3%. 40% of all US mortgages are a rate below 3%.
Wow.
So it does not matter what happens in the economy. It doesn't matter how much interest rates move. It doesn't matter nothing else. It doesn't matter what happens with Ukraine or Russia. It doesn't matter what happens with your job or your relationship. You are not moving. You are not going to sell your house if you have a mortgage that's at 2.7.
Yeah.
The mortgage on my personal home is at 2.5%. If I was to go buy a new house today, it would be at 7.5%. So that means, my home, let's say it's worth $1 million. I could go buy a house for $300,000 and keep the same mortgage payment. I mean, those aren't the actual numbers, but somewhere in that ballpark. No one's going to do that.
Yeah.
So it means no one is selling. Like there will not be very many sales. That means transactional volume is going down. And you've seen Wells Fargo, they just laid off 93% of
Wow.
their mortgage origination staff in throughout 2022. The mortgage originations are down over 90%. Real estate transactions are down 75% year over year. So it's a bad time to be a licensed real estate agent. That trend is going to continue. People, if they lose their job, they're not going to go across the country to find a new job. They'll just be unemployed, because what job is worth tripling your housing cost
Hmm.
to stay steady? And people have, it's very sticky. People are very addicted to kind of their mortgage payment and their cost of housing. It's one of the, it's like gas prices, something that's very emotionally sticky to them. And you can hinge a lot of kind of tangential predictions just off of that one data point, right? So the prediction I've made is that no one's moving,
Yeah.
because half of us have ridiculously low mortgage rates on our personal homes or our investment properties. We know that interest rates are going to go up. They're probably going to stabilize. We know that treasury rates uh, are a front runner to Fed lending rates, right? So when the Fed announces that rates will go up, treasury rates immediately shoot up.
Okay.
And when the Fed announces that rates will go down, treasury rates immediately fall. Treasury rates are forward looking, and Fed rates are kind of rear view mirror looking. And so again, and this is not like, I'm not a rocket scientist to say these things. You agree with it. Hopefully everyone that is listening here understands these things. So if you bought a house today that's an investment property with a loan instrument that's indexed off of a 5-year treasury, which most commercial mortgages, 90% of them are 5-year fixed. That's what we have, hundreds of millions of dollars of debt that's at a 5-year fixed rate. You could buy an asset today that is at a 6% interest rate. And you might say, gosh, I'm not making any cash flow with this. I'm just hitting a break even. But sometime in the next 6 months, Jerome Powell is going to get up on stage and say, okay, we're done hiking rates.
Hmm.
And what's going to happen? The 5-year treasury is going to crash that day. It'll go down like 1.5 points. It'll just fall through the floor. And then you can refinance that debt.
Okay.
Or if you're buying a personal home, which is more tied to like the 10-year treasury, not quite as volatile. 30-year mortgage rates are not quite as volatile, but they are forward looking. And that those rates are going to go down probably somewhere midway 2023. So again, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to make any of these
Mm.
predictions. I don't think I'm saying anything that is special knowledge. I don't think I'm particularly smart either. Just putting together the puzzle pieces and listening to people who are a lot smarter than I am. So throughout 2023, it's going to be slow transaction volume, not a lot of people buying, not a lot of people selling. The smart people, in my opinion, right now, the people who will beat the market are the people who did not buy things last year in early 2022 when prices were super high and interest rates were low. They kept their powder dry, and they're buying now when other people are not buying, and
Mm.
buying at discounted prices because the interest rates are so high. And then it's not a sure thing, but it's extraordinarily likely that interest rates will come down by the end of 2023, or at least the first half of 2024, and you'll suddenly be in a really, really good position on those investments.
Yeah.
And most people listening to that, I think 99% of people would not disagree with a single thing I said, and yet very few people have the I don't know, like that just feels uncomfortable to them to make a huge financial decision today predicated on a pretty likely prediction of the future. But we're making a $100 million bet on that strategy.
Hmm.
Right this second. We bought multiple properties in the last 12 weeks for the price the seller paid in 2017.
Wow.
I don't know about you, but I think real estate values have gone up since 2017. But
Yeah.
with these interest rates in the investment world, that pushes down asset prices very quickly. And then I'm pretty sure that we're going to refinance those assets here in about a year and probably get all of our cash back out of those assets and then hold those assets forever on an infinite rate of return. And our investors in our private equity fund will participate in that. And again, I don't think I'm saying anything here that's like crazy or particularly insightful. Just if anyone listening is investing in real estate and they go out and do what I just described, I think they'd probably make a lot of money.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good information. And based on what you're saying and other things I've been noticing is the people that have historically bought houses with maybe between 25 to 35 in that age range, they're prolonging that deadline now. They're kind of renting for a little bit longer to see will these interest rates go down. So, is it true that we're in more of a renter's nation right now? And if so, how does that help investors like you and other people that want to get involved in investing in real estate?
Yeah, it sucks to be a millennial. I wish I could swear on podcasts. So I'm 39. I was born in 1983. So I was the part of the lucky generation where I grew up without the internet, but then the
Hmm.
internet kind of dawned while I was in middle school, high school. So I'm half Gen X, half millennial. And check this out. Check this out, Matt. I got the last mortgage that millennials were allowed to get on a single family home.
Wow.
I bought in 2009 at the depth of the crash.
Hmm.
If you haven't figured out yet, I'm counter-cyclical. I saw a housing crash, time to buy. I got a great deal
Yeah.
on a brand new house at a crazy, crazy discount, and the government gave me a subsidy to do it. After the crash, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac changed their underwriting criteria for student loans so that even if you're using income-based repayment or graduated repayment, or you were in forbearance or deferment, they were still counted against your debt to income ratio.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, an entire generation was locked out of home ownership. And um, the wealth gap between people who own a home and people who don't own a home, it's not a small one. It's an order of magnitude. The people who own a home at the end of their life, they have 10 times more personal household wealth than the people who don't. So it's a really, really, really crippling financial situation that all of a sudden in 2009, as a millennial, I was allowed to get a mortgage. In
Yeah.
2010, I was not allowed to get a mortgage because my student loans are counted against me. This is something that should be talked about on a day-to-day basis, that
Hmm.
a policy change happened. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac said, man, there's this mortgage crisis out there. We need to tighten up our criteria. We've got all these student loans that are, it seems like kind of a bubble. We're gonna have a kind of a gloomy outlook and ratchet those expectations in. And somehow, and this just makes me furious, it has been propagated into a lie that millennials do not want to own a home. Every single year, uh, uh, Gartner does this study, and they go survey people and say, do you own a luxury handbag, or do you own fancy clothing or a nice car? Do you own a home, and do you want those things? And millennials, none of them own a fancy watch. Their parents in the 80s, did, but they don't, and they don't want one.
Hmm.
They don't own a fancy handbag, and they don't want one. They don't own a car. They don't even have a driver's license. They don't want one. They're waiting for the self-driving car to take them to the restaurant or whatever. They don't own a house. 90% of millennials want to own a house. 90% of millennials want to own a house, and they've been locked out. The entire generation has been locked out by an underwriting change as a result of the great financial crisis.
Wow.
So this is something that's not talked about enough. There's just this tiny change in the underwriting algorithm. Well, it's a huge change, but it impacted people in a really profound way. So millennials, it's a renter's nation, but they don't necessarily want to be renters.
Hmm.
That's conflated. It's perceived that they don't own a home because they don't want to own a home, or it's perceived that they don't own a home because they're too lazy to afford one. That's completely untrue. I could buy a house in 2009. If I was born in 1984 or 1985 instead of 1983, I would not have bought that first home.
Yeah.
And that first home, by the way, so continuing my journey from my 14-year-old self, I rented a house in college and then rented out the other rooms to roommates. So I
Nice.
never paid rent. I lived for
Hmm.
free and created massive value. It was way cheaper than the dorms, for a way higher quality house. I created like a mini frat house. It was
There you go.
amazing. I kept living with those people even after I graduated college. Loved the lifestyle so much that I built a custom home in 2009, specifically laid out so I could like rent by the room to
Hmm.
these other people. still didn't ever pay to live there, never once made a mortgage payment on the house. And you know, that's a $250,000 wealth gap right there, that because I was able to get that mortgage in 2009 versus 2010. This might seem like kind of an esoteric topic, but if you're, you know, if you're between the ages of like 25 and 35, I'm 39. So if you're between the ages of 25 and 35, I am sorry, and you have been
Hmm.
wronged, and there's nothing wrong with you. And you should want to own a home, because at the end of your life, you'll have 10 times more wealth if you buy a house. And you should do everything you can to buy a house as early in your life as possible. Buy a condo, buy a fixer upper, whatever you can get qualified for, you know, with your student loan debt burden. And as a licensed agent, I'd love to help you. Not that I actually can represent you, just um, you know, my time is really valuable, and yet I still help people buy houses just because it's so
Hmm.
fun. I helped my nanny buy her first house. We just closed 3 weeks ago,
Nice.
and like, you can't hang out with me for more than about 2 hours without buying some real estate. It is the key to wealth for 90 to 95% of people. A
Yeah.
very tiny percentage of people will ever accumulate real wealth in any vehicle other than real estate. I'm going to say that a second time. As an American, it is statistically almost impossible that you will ever accrue meaningful wealth in any vehicle other than real estate. You might have some money in a 401k. Guess what? Your equity in your single family home that you live in blows away,
Hmm.
dwarfs the equity that you accrue in the stock market over time. And the numbers are this simple. It's like the law. It's like the natural log or whatever, or pi. The cost of housing typically runs about 30% of your total income, cost of living. This is just a historical trend. Going back to Mesopotamia, you spent about 30% of your chickens or sheep on your house or whatever. So if you needed to be fully prepared for your financial future, how many houses would you need to own, Matt?
Ooh, I don't know the answer.
Well, about three of them, right?
Yeah.
So if the cost of housing is about 30% of your income, do you think that sometime in the next 40 years you'd be able to go own three houses, own
Yeah.
them outright and rent them out?
Absolutely.
I think you could.
Yeah.
You don't need to invest in the stock market. You don't need an IRA. You don't need a 401k. You don't need to be on some kind of corporate treadmill. You need three houses. Well,
Wow.
and one to live in.
Hmm.
But but so you need three houses. I think you can do it. And this is how the vast majority of wealth in the United States is created, is through real estate.
Yeah, it's extremely powerful because it's open for everyone. And I'm hearing you talk about the millennials and the student loans, and it's just very unfortunate. I never knew that situation.
No
So
one
I'm
does.
glad that, yeah, I'm glad you brought that to light and shared that with everyone because it's a very unfortunate topic. But for anyone that's younger or older, like myself in particular, I'm 22. Like I can look out my window right now in my neighborhood and I see hundreds of homes. There's no reason why I shouldn't be looking into real estate. Like having this conversation just adds wealth to my knowledge of like, hey, this is something I should be doing one day. And if I don't, like, it's on me. It's not on anyone else. Everyone has homes around them. There are so many homes in the United States, and there's an opportunity out there for everyone. So I love that you're bringing this up because it's something that everyone needs to consider and get involved in. And no matter what age you're at, you can start researching. You can start trying to find ways that you can get involved. And for someone who's, let's say, in their early 20s, let's say they don't have the capital to own a house themselves, but they want to get involved, they want to learn more about the industry. What are some ways that they can start to research winning properties and find out how they can get involved sometime in the
Yeah.
future?
Yeah. So the best way to learn anything. So let's go back in time before there were universities. I have a bachelor's degree in computer science, a bachelor's degree in ministry, and a good chunk of a master's degree. I love education, but truly, the best way to learn anything is to go serve someone who's done it before. So
Mm,
if you go back 1,000 years, you become an apprentice. I mean, if you want to become a plumber today, what do? You go serve someone who's done it before.
yeah.
And you want to find someone who's doing it at an extraordinary level. You don't want to find an average person. You want to find someone where it scares you just to be in their presence. Like, I don't know if I can meet this standard. You know who I'm talking about. You have
Hmm.
someone in your life right now that's popping into your mind like, oh, I feel a little uneasy when I'm around them. Like, they're so high energy, or it seems like they know everything, or just everyone loves them. And I'm going to feel like kind of a lesser person being around them. If you play a sport, if you play tennis and you go play with some people who aren't very good, but make you feel good about your own game, you don't get any better. But
Hmm.
when you go play with people who just destroy you on a daily basis, where you have to step up your game just to step onto the court and be able to look at them with a straight face, You will launch yourself into a level of play that you didn't even know it existed. And in anything, so in any real estate market, as a licensed agent, in any real estate market, 10% of agents do 90% of the transactions.
Wow.
And 90% of the agents only do 10% of the transactions. And this is how it is in most skills in life. So, for example, I did not have a private equity fund until relatively recently in my life, and I wasn't sure how to go about it. And so I went and met with some people, as many people as I could get into conversation with, who I will email people all the time and say, "Hey, can I fly out and hang out with you for a few hours? Hey, can
Mm.
I come just see your team at your office? Hey, can I?" And they don't respond to my email because they're busy people. Like it's kind of a humiliating exercise for me to, I'm a successful person. My time's very valuable, and I'm reaching out to people who are just in a whole higher level than me. So there's this one individual. His name is Christian, and uh, I said, I really probably should have a private equity fund. I knew about private equity from back in my tech days, and there's a bunch of real estate private equity funds, but I just don't like the business model. It's fee based, and it's all about value extraction, and I want to change the game. I want to like bend the moral arc of capitalism towards justice. And it just seems like such a bad industry. I feel like it'd be, I just don't want to do it. And Christian, I can still remember, he just has a puzzled look on his face, and he says, "Well, Nick, I'm confused." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, you have the solution right there. Like just change private equity." What? Like that's a jujitsu move right
Yeah.
there, right? Like I don't like the industry. Okay, just change the industry. Again, I wish
Hmm.
I could swear on podcasts here. Like you need people who are playing the game at a way higher
Right.
level that can just ask you a quality question,
Yeah.
that can just push you just a little bit. And I'm like, "Well, we'd be so different. No one would invest." And Christian was like, "Of course they'd invest because you're different. They'd be
Hmm.
crazy not to." Like, like he was like angry at me that I thought so little of myself,
Mm.
that I couldn't change capitalism forever, the way Warren Buffett changed capitalism with the Buffett Pledge. You have to give it away. So we launched our private equity fund. 5% goes to a profit share for our staff. 5% goes to charity. We don't have any fees whatsoever, which is kind of unheard of in the industry. In
Hmm.
fact, we make no profit whatsoever until our investors get a full return of capital. And this is going to sound crazy, but already, like, we are seeing the industry change. We're seeing some of these fees go away in our kind of corner of the world, in the real estate private equity space. Christian was right.
Yeah.
He had been there before. He'd been in that industry for 20 years. He knew what I was capable of. Other people, our mentors, think so much more of our capabilities than other people do. It's the great, all anyone needs is someone who just believes in them and has
Hmm.
the authority to believe in them.
Yep.
Like, "Nick, you're gonna do great." Like no, just put it out there. Everyone's going to invest. What's wrong with you that you think you couldn't change the world? This is why we're on this earth, is to
Hmm.
make it a better place. I'm disappointed in you.
Yeah.
So that's how you learn. That's how you learn. So there are real estate investors in every economy, in every ecosystem, in every economic cycle, in every geography. People think it's like a hard thing to do. People pay thousands of dollars for courses. They get seminars, that they pay crazy amounts of money for. You don't need any of that. There's going to be a meetup. There's going to be a real estate investors meetup in your area. You can go to meblackswan.com, sign up for our newsletter, come to our community hour, and you can learn there if you want. It's all free. We have a course. It's a pay what you can model. 100% of the revenue goes to charity. We give away our whole playbook, but that's not what is going to actually get you anywhere. You need to go find someone that you can go spend time with, and on a recurring basis, that can mentor you. Anyone who's had success in anything, they are excited to mentor people, to guide them in their
Hmm.
journey like that. That's why I'm on this podcast. Like, I could be doing other things with my time. I could be sitting on a beach. I could be, making more money or whatever with a private equity fund. I love just getting out. When you said, "I need to invest in real estate, here's all this real estate all around me," that's the highlight of my day right there. Like,
Awesome.
I'm going to fall asleep with a smile on my face today because Matt said I need to buy some real estate.
Yeah.
Like that's what gets me juiced, is like helping other people,
Yeah.
get some of the success that I've had in my life. So it's not hard to find a mentor, and you have to lead with value. Don't ever ever go to a mentor and say, "Hey, will you mentor me?"
Hmm.
That's like walking up to a girl and saying, "Will you marry me?" Like, that's not a good vibe. Just say, "Hey, Nick, I really admire you. I admire your values, and you're going to change capitalism. Like, yeah, pander them just 1%, right?
Hmm.
Would you mind if I just followed you around for a day and just, is there anything I can do to provide you with value? What can I
Yeah.
do to help you? What can I do to serve you? And no one's going to say no to that proposal. Well, I take that back. A lot of people will say no to that proposal, but when the student is ready, the master appears.
Hmm.
And like I said, I email people all the time and say, hey, could I just fly out and hang out with you for a few hours? And people say no, but the ones who are right say yes. And that's how I learn everything. Is just I mean I'm playing the game at a high level. There's people out there playing the game at 100 times higher level than me, and I'm just doing everything I can. There's an individual, a billionaire, a person who is playing the real estate game at 100 times higher level than I'm playing him. I have been trying to spend time with this guy for a year. I went and flew out and spent a day with him, and he loved it. Now he's flying out next week to spend some time with me.
Wow.
I wonder if he might be able to offer me a little bit of value to go look at some of my job sites. He's built like 10,000 houses. Like, one of his projects is as big. He has a third of $1 billion project. So one of his projects is as big as my entire business. I think he might be able to offer me some
Yeah.
tips on how I might be able to improve. I
Yeah.
went to his job site and he had one guy running the whole job site, a third of $1 billion job site.
Jeez.
I'm like, why shouldn't you have like a team of 20 running this thing? He's like, well, no, you just find the right person and you just need
Hmm.
one. Man, that's a life-changing insight. I immediately went home and said, okay, I need to find that one right person to run my job sites. That's exactly what I did. And now we're 10 times more productive than we used to be in that area of our business. So if you want to get into real estate, it's not mystical. If you want to get into anything, but if you want to get into real estate, it's not mystical. Go to a meetup. Go look on Facebook. Go ask your friends. Find a real estate agent. Find a lender and ask them, I want to get involved in real estate. Do you have any clients that are really successful investors that you think I could learn a lot from? Is
Hmm.
there anything I could do to offer them value? I promise you, you can find a mentor in the next 24 hours if you really want to. And it's truly that simple. There is nothing preventing you from launching that journey right now. And let's say, Matt, you really did want to own real estate, like truly you did want to. Matt, if you hung out with me for like a month, do you think it's possible you wouldn't own any real estate at the end of that month?
I don't think so.
Like, it would just happen,
It'd
right?
be
Like,
done. Yeah.
you can't get on the court with
Yeah.
someone and not mirror them and
Hmm.
not start getting their outcomes. And it's completely effortless.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing advice right there. I have mentors right now. I've had mentors in the past, and I've learned so much just from free interactions that they give me
Yeah.
their time and their value, and I'm giving up work for free or whatever that is. And I learned so much from them, more than I've learned in school, to be honest, just from following their footsteps and learning and asking questions. And it goes back to what you were saying about when you are confident about a particular topic, you think that you know a lot more than you do. And it just, you have to be a student again, and you have to take a step back and learn about what the industry is doing, how you can benefit from it. So I love that, analogy right there. That's perfect. Nick, I want to ask you something about your mindset and your personality as a whole. You said you like to give value to other people, but I want to ask you, when your alarm clock goes off in the morning, what gets you out of bed? What gets you excited for the new day?
Well, I've got four kids, 7, 5, 2, and 0, and hopefully we'll have a couple more. So that gets me out of bed
Yeah.
in the more tangible sense of the word. Um, I like to fall asleep to humor, so I listen to like stand-up comedy and stuff,
Okay.
and then to wake up to inspiration. Tony Robbins is a huge mentor of mine. I love his work. Listen to some Jim Rohn or Joe Rogan, or just anything, when I'm like taking a shower, just anything that kind of gets me pumped up and
Hmm.
just gets my sights set higher. Again, depression, sadness is an inward facing emotion. Woe is me. Well, you're thinking about you.
Yeah.
And when you just focus on other people and who you can serve, like that, they're, people will work so much harder to serve others than they will to serve themselves. And it is biochemically impossible to be depressed when you're in service to others. And
Hmm.
there's certainly an inflection point in my life where I had kind of achieved financial freedom, and it was kind of depressing. Like, and it's called the astronauts problem. The astronauts, they landed on the moon, they went to space, and then when they came back down to Earth, they became alcoholics and just, after you've gone to space, what the heck else is there in life?
Yeah.
And you have to serve.
Yeah.
That's what we were created to do. God put this drive inside of us. And when we live in that, in every moment of the day, like you have unlimited energy. And the nice thing is, there's never a lack of people to serve, right? So I'm
Hmm.
constantly serving my wife. I'm constantly serving my kids. People say, "Hey, I wish I had." I talk to people a lot about their marriage. And I have a bachelor's degree in ministry, and so husbands might complain, "Hey, I don't get enough intimacy from my wife." And I say, "Okay, well, what kind of intimacy do you give to your wife?" And, "Oh, I don't have enough quality time with my kids." Well, what kind of quality time do you give to your kids?
Hmm.
Like, all day, every day, we shake our fist at God and say, "God, give me more time." And God says, "No, I need more of you.
Hmm.
I need more of you." There's no difference between me and Elon Musk. Elon has the same number of minutes in a day as I do. He has just figured out how to show up at a higher level. And if someone's more successful than you, it's because they figured out how to serve more people.
Yeah.
That's truly how the universe works. So when I get up in the morning, I look at my calendar, and I think some people, I guess I wince just saying this, but they're like, "Oh, I got to go to a meeting." Well, again, you're focused on yourself.
Hmm.
No, you get to go to a meeting
Yeah.
because you get to serve some people. And when you walk into that meeting truly focused on others, there is an aura about you. There's an
Hmm.
energy. Like all heads turn towards you. And have you ever been in like a low quality meeting
All
and
the
there's
time.
like
Yeah.
10 people in the room and everyone knows it's a waste of time and there's one idiot who's talking that no one's listening to, and then someone says something and everyone just they kind of turn their head and look at that person. And typically they ask a high quality question, and they're typically focused on serving others. And they might
Hmm.
ask a question like, "Who can we really bring value to with our time together today?" Or, "What did we hope to really achieve in today's meeting?"
Hmm.
Or, what's the outcome that's going to bring someone a lot of value today?" Or, "I really love this, this thing that I do. How can this allow me to do this to serve others?" Not in so many words. I'm being speaking very with a lot of brevity there, but I promise you, all of the most profound experiences you've had in your human existence have revolved around your connection with others, and at their peak. I mean, this is a critical concept to understand. Anything that's ever been communicated to you with intensity in your entire life is only two things. It's either an expression for love or a call for help.
Hmm.
It's either an expression of love or a call for help, and both of them, one is someone who wants to serve, and the other is someone who wants to be served. And unfortunately, a lot of people, they have really unhealthy ways to cry for help, and a lot of people, they just kind of shut down and just they never speak with intensity in their life, and they shrink away from that engagement. But emotions, like, that's what makes us feel alive. So I don't know. I'm talking a lot here. Like, this is a really long-winded answer to like what gets you up in the morning, but like that's sincerely what gets me up in the morning. I
Yeah.
don't know. Like I find it very easy to be energized when I wake up and I look around. I literally speak out loud. I am so lucky. I
Hmm.
can't believe that this is my life, that this is the life. Now I might have a kid screaming. Well, I probably have two kids screaming. My wife is probably, kind of upset at one of the kids that's screaming, and then doting on the other kid that's screaming. And I'm sipping my cup of coffee, just living in gratitude because there's so many people that I get the opportunity to serve. It'd be easy to be sad about that moment, but I see it as a beautiful moment, and it's full of gratitude.
Yeah, that is gold right there. And such a good answer about how we can better look at life as a better opportunity and with more gratitude. I love that answer right there. Nick, the final question I have for you is the biggest question that I'm excited to ask, but also probably the question that's going to give people the most value, because here
On
on
the edge of my
Define
seat here.
here on Define Success, we're all about helping people achieve success. So I want to ask you, how do you define the word success?
That's a good one. Um, so if you ever go to a Tony Robbins Date with Destiny event, he helps you kind of rewrite your operating system, your I don't know, it's hard to describe really in few words, but the human brain is a question answering device. Every single thought you have, whether you realize it or not, is an answer to a question. And Tony has a thesis that everyone has a primary question, a question they ask themselves over and over and over again, hundreds of times throughout the day, that kind of drives everything that they do. And he helps you make your question a higher quality question. So my primary question from years ago was, how can I be more successful?
Mm.
Which is kind of an awful primary question because it implies I'm not successful enough,
Hmm.
and that there never is enough success, that there always needs to be more success. And my primary question today is, and very sincerely, I ask myself this question all the time, all day, every day: how can I better appreciate God's guidance in this moment? Because all of the success that I have is not me. It's there's so many people who brought me to this place. And whatever you believe in, the universe or God or Mother Earth or whatever, uh, there is something gave you the gift of a beating heart. There's breath in your lungs, and you didn't have to do anything to earn it. It was a gift to you. You don't have to be successful. You don't have to do anything. And in fact, it's going to sound completely crazy, but the harder you work for success, the less success you'll have. There are so many times earlier in my younger days when I held things so tightly that they slipped through my fingers.
Hmm.
If you just appreciate the guidance, the gift that you have in your everyday life, it's impossible not to be energized. It's impossible not to be excited to connect with other people, to serve other people. And then if you serve other people, everything you could ever want or need is just given to you. My house is kind of an embarrassment of wealth. There's probably like, looks like a loading dock, so probably like 15 gifts piled up from Christmas, from friends and people that I've served years ago that I forgot about, and they send me a too generous gift every year, and I remember, oh yeah, that person, how are they doing? I need to give them a call.
Hmm.
That was so cool. And I get these really touching letters from people where I had a 30-minute conversation with them, on like a real estate deal that was going sideways, or a problem with their relationship with their wife that apparently changed their life or something like that. Like, when you are just ruthlessly focused on serving others, you will have all the success you could ever want. Like you can never achieve success. Success is something that you just have to receive.
Yeah.
And everything in life, all of success, it should be a pull and not a push. You should be drawn to it. If you are pushing yourself to achieve success, it will always elude you. You're always going to be asking yourself, how can I be more successful? Well, guess what, my friend? That finish line is never coming. And you will be pushing yourself until you're 70 years old, wondering why you spend every day at the office.
Hmm.
So I maybe I answered that question tangentially, but I think that's my definition of success. Or uh, success is an illusion. It's a journey and not a destination. And when you just live with utter gratitude that you have a beating heart, that all you need is been given to you already, and all you have to do is just receive it. Like um my net worth has like 100x since I leaned into that mindset. So there's like
Wow.
objective information. Like, I spent the first 20 years of my professional life crushing myself, pushing myself to achieve success, and then I finally let it all go, and
Hmm.
everything I ever wanted just came to me effortlessly.
That's amazing. That's a perfect way to sum everything up. And I love that mindset. And more people need to adapt that. So, Nick, thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for joining the show, sharing all of your knowledge about real estate and how we can all get started. It means a lot to me. And I appreciate you for all of your time and value today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Matt.